Hey, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my photo talks, all things photography. So today I'm going to talk about a photographer. So Judith Joy Ross, I recently have discovered her, and she's a photographer working out of Pennsylvania, and she's been working since the 70s and 80s, and she sounds to me like the kind of person we would want to have together at a meetup. The interviews that I've read about her and seen her work, they all say she's a firecracker of a character, and she has a foul mouth that an F-bomb can fly at any time. And in all her interviews, she's just talking like that. She's such a real person talking with the language that is her. And she has photographed, thinking about last week's episode, she has photographed people with an 8x10 camera and made a career out of being seen in books and published and put into museums and galleries around the world. And she said, I just photographed strangers. I just went out with the 8x10 camera. And thank God it's so big. Her quote was something about, it's a effing circus when you bring that thing out. It's like the circus came to town. And it's such a spectacle that it helps draw people over, and it gives you time to work with them. There's a big difference between holding up a DSLR or holding up a phone and saying, hey, can I make your picture? And holding up an 8x10 and having them sit still and focusing and having them watch that process. All throughout that process, the time it takes, people end up feeling like there's something special going on. Once you get focus and you put the film holder in, and then you walk in front of the camera and you set the lens for the right exposure, and then you pull the dark slide, and then you trip the shutter with a cable while you're talking to them. I could be standing next to the camera here and I'm talking to the subject and I'm waiting for the right expression because there's nothing in between the camera and the subject. I don't have a camera in front of my face when you're shooting large format. And I love the work that she made, and the work that she made is, some would say, she found interesting characters, and she said, I didn't really know who I was going to photograph. She went out to a local swimming pool and photographed some of the awkward teenagers. There's a great article in the New Yorker. I'll put a link to that. And it's such a example of using a format that changes the way people respond. Just like I'm doing the 8x10 project, I'm kind of following right in the footsteps of other people who have done it. Sally Mann, who has made so many wonderful photographs, and I don't think that those photographs would be as interesting if they were shot on 35 millimeter or if they were shot in a digital format. The camera and the format make them into something more. Her photographs are somewhat created. She would tell her children what to do. She would pose them. So she was kind of a director with a vision of what she wanted to make. So there is a little difference rather than Judith Joy Ross, who's doing more of a portrait series of people that she meets, strangers on the street. And there have been other photographers who have done gallery shows and museum shows. I believe the person who made the photo series of Strangers Touching, he went out and he found one person who would be willing to be photographed, and then he found another person, and he had them touch and hold each other in ways, whether they were standing in public or whether they were in a motel room sitting on a bed. He found ways to get them to agree to be photographed as if they knew each other very well. And it wasn't sexual in any way. It was very much just friendship and companionship, or maybe family like. But he shot it with a large format camera. And I think that adds to the pitch to the museums. I have this project that's an interesting hook, and look at it, shot with this large format camera. Look at these photographs. Hand printed in black and white or color printed in whatever process they use for color printing these days, I'm not even sure, because I'm mostly a black and white guy. That's a fascinating process, and the medium does matter. The medium adds something. It's not just because it's inconvenient and awkward that it makes it better. It really does look different. And take a look at Judith's work, and I'll put a link to that other photographer who I don't know his name at the moment, but I'll find it, and I'll put that in there too. Take a look at their work and see, does it matter? I think it does. And that's the reason that I'm doing this 8x10 portrait this summer. Because it does matter how you go, and the first impression that they have of us when they see that camera is different than if I'm standing out there with a DSLR. Even if I'm standing out there with a big Hasselblad digital camera, it's not the same as this big wooden box camera. Even if the box camera were made in 1990 or today, a current model, to everybody looking, it's from 1900. Nobody knows that they're still making those anymore. To everybody, it's this old-fashioned thing. Why do you need a black hood? Well, that's just to help you see the ground glass. So, Judith Joy Ross, take a look at her work. I'd be interested in your comments. I think that she's a wonderful character, and it's a joy for me to have found her, because I never knew of her just a few months ago. All right, that's today's photography talk. Hey, if you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button. If you can support, hit the Patreon. Thanks to all my supporters. Thanks for being here. Here's to good light.